Number 1. Vic Morrow. Despite his life's work as an actor, Vic Morrow's greatest contribution may have been his death. Morrow was a veteran actor of both TV and film. His credits include the hit World War II series Combat, and the groundbreaking film Blackboard Jungle and TV miniseries Roots. But by 1982 it had been some years since his last big role, and appearing in Twilight Zone, the movie could have marked his comeback. In the movie, Morrow's racist character experiences a Scrooge-like change of heart through time travel. In the climactic scene, he rescues 2 Vietnamese children from helicopter fire during the Vietnam War. But the helicopter flying into an exploding charge was not part of the script. The accident blinded the pilot, the chopper crashed to Earth, crushing the girl, 6-year-old Renee Chen, and decapitating Morrow and the 7-year-old boy, Micah Din Le. The grisly, graphic death and celebrity of the film's director, John Landis, finally brought much-needed attention to the issue of safety on the Hollywood movie set. As a direct result, studio heads and workers' unions hammered out a codified set of safety standards. What's more, both Landis and the Warner Brothers. Studio were charged with involuntary manslaughter. Although acquitted, they settled civil suits with substantial payments to Morrow's children and the families of the child actors, who also had been illegally hired. Number 2. Ormer Locklear. The grisly, graphic death and celebrity of the film's director, John Landis, finally brought much-needed attention to the issue of safety on the Hollywood movie set. As a direct result, studio heads and workers' unions hammered out a codified set of safety standards. What's more, both Landis and the Warner Brothers. Studio were charged with involuntary manslaughter. Although acquitted, they settled civil suits with substantial payments to Morrow's children and the families of the child actors, who also had been illegally hired. Locklear's celebrity quickly led to stardom in another burgeoning entertainment field, motion pictures. He headlined The Great Air Robbery in 1919, and began work on The Skywayman in 1920. On the night of August 2, in the last stunt planned for that film's shooting schedule, Locklear performed a tailspin aptly named a suicide dive. Searchlights, needed for filming in the dark, should have been turned off so that Locklear would be able to see and safely pull out of the dive. They were not. Either blinded or having lost his bearings, Locklear crashed and was killed on impact. He was 28 years old. Number 3. Martha Mansfield. It was Thanksgiving Day 1923 on location in San Antonio, Texas, and Martha Mansfield, born Martha Ehrlich, also known as Martha Early, had a lot to be thankful for. The 24-year-old actress was a rising star in the Hollywood scene. From appearing in a series of comedic shorts 6 years before, she had performed in the Ziegfeld Follies, an elite ensemble of beautiful and talented ingenues, and then was cast opposite the legendary John Barrymore in 1920's Drive. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. She sat in a car with fellow actors, having just finished the day's shooting for her latest movie, a Civil War love story called The Warrens of Virginia. Mansfield was still in costume, the ruffled finery befitting a Southern belle, when someone in the car struck a match. Mansfield's clothing was immediately set ablaze. Her co-star managed to contain the flames using his overcoat, and the chauffeur tore the dress from Mansfield's body, burning himself in the process. Her injuries were too severe, however, and she succumbed the next morning, November 30, 1923. As small consolation, the men's actions had saved her face and neck from being burned. The studio heads, dry-eyed, noted that Mansfield had mostly wrapped up her work on the film, saving them the trouble of recasting her role. Her scenes were pared down, another actress promoted as the star, and the show went on. Number 4. Jack Bud Long. The story of Jack Bud Long stands as a cautionary tale for anyone who watches a professional at work and thinks, "That doesn't look so hard, bet I could do that." In this case, the pro to be emulated was an actor, that was riding a horse at breakneck speed for a movie. Bud Long was a skilled horseman and polo-playing buddy of the screen star Errol Flynn. Out of friendship, Flynn got Bud Long a role as an extra in his latest film, a fictionalized biopic of George Custer called They Died with Their Boots On. Bud Long would appear in the climactic scene recreating the Battle of Little Bighorn. The filming's scheduled start, June 25, 1941, marked the 65th anniversary of the real event popularly known as Custer's Last Stand. For Bud Long, that proved a bad omen. For some reason an amateur's enthusiasm, Bud Long decided to brandish a real saber, rather than a wooden prop other professional stuntmen used, while riding into the battle scene. When his horse spooked and reared, perhaps startled by an explosive, Bud Long had the presence of mind to toss the saber away before the horse threw him. Unfortunately, the sword landed with the blade facing upward. Bud Long landed on it, impaling himself. He was taken to the hospital where he died a few days later of peritonitis, an inflammation of the abdominal wall. Number 5. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power was born and bred an actor. His grandfather was a well-known Irish comedian, his father, a respected performer of both stage and screen. The younger Power followed in the old man's footsteps, tragically, you might say. He traveled with his dad to Hollywood, and was at his side when Tyrone Power Sr. died from a heart attack he suffered after a day's filming. A versatile talent, Power racked up a passel of screen successes. His roles ranged from the infamous outlaw in Jesse James to the troubled hero in a 1957 adaptation of Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, and to the calculating accused murderer in Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution. Power wanted to build a reputation as a dramatic actor on these serious films. But the studio, eager to exploit his matinee idol looks, cast him as a series of swashbuckling swordsmen in titles like 1940's The Mark of Zorro and 1947's Captain from Castile. Ironically, Power died almost literally with a sword in his hand. It was November 11, 1958. After the eighth take of a fight scene in Solomon and Sheba, he began to tremble, complaining of aches and chills. He quickly collapsed and died of a heart attack, just as his father had 27 years before. Number 6. Mitra Gibancha. Mitra Gibancha first found fame as a champ of Thai boxing. Strikingly tall, as well as dark and handsome, he landed his first role in his early 20s. Movie magic quickly ensued. In the 14 years between 1957 and 1970, Gibancha appeared in 266 released films, typically working on multiple projects at a time. Although he appeared in romances and musicals, it was as an action-adventure hero that he became a Thai household name, and a national treasure. Even the Queen of Thailand declared herself a fan. Gibancha stayed in boxing shape, and took pride in performing his own stunts. On October 8, 1970, while shooting the finale of what became his final movie, Gibancha caught a rope ladder dangling from a helicopter, intending to ride off into the sky. For reasons unknown, some speculate his grueling schedule had caught up with him. The actor lost his grip as the chopper ascended. Gibancha, 36 years old at the time, fell some 300 feet, 91 meters, to his death. Final cuts of the movie In Si Thong, Golden Eagle in English, preserved the accident caught on film upon its release in 1974. Though later versions removed the incident. Tens of thousands of fans lined the Bangkok streets for Gibancha's cremation ceremony. Today, a shrine near the spot where Gibancha died honors his memory. The same can't be said of recording technology. Only about 95 of his films remain, many in poor quality. They were shot using 16mm film, with no negatives saved. Copies must now be made from increasingly worn originals. Number 7. Roy Kinnear. Actor Roy Kinnear hadn't expected to perform the strenuous stunt of riding a galloping horse across the Alcantara Bridge in Toledo, Spain, for the 1989 film The Return of the Musketeers. Kinnear had a long, lauded career, including roles in the Beatles' cult film Help, and the classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But by late 1988, when the movie was filming, Kinnear was now 54 years old and weighed in at more than 200 pounds, 91 kilograms, and a horseman he was not. Still, he accepted the challenge. It was a fateful decision. Kinnear was thrown from his horse and fractured his pelvis. Though not life-threatening, the injury was complicated by internal bleeding. Kinnear died in the hospital one day later. Like Vic Morrow's death 6 years earlier, the accident shone a spotlight on the darker side of movie making. Kinnear's family sued the production company, and witnesses' testimony revealed the pressure actors and crew members felt to cut corners and keep quiet regarding safety on the set. As with the Morrow case, the producers didn't accept guilt, but settled with a payment of £650,000, about $1 million. Number 8. Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee was just 8 years old when his father, the martial artist and actor Bruce Lee, died at the age of 32. Lee grew up to be an actor but, like his father, died young. The real-life story behind his death while filming 1993's The Crow reads like skillfully plotted fiction. A chain of minor lapses in judgment ends in the death of an innocent victim. It began when the prop crew, untrained in firearms, made homemade dummies, harmless, disarmed bullets used for close-up shots of a loaded gun. The crew bought conventional cartridges as well as the entire ammunition assembly, bullets, gunpowder, and a primer, the small charge that triggers the gunpowder. They removed the bullets, emptied the gunpowder and then placed the now empty bullets back in. That same gun was used to shoot blanks in the scene where Lee's character is murdered. Blanks are cartridges with the gunpowder and primer but without bullets. Blanks provide the flash, bang, and smoke used to show a gun being fired. On the fateful day, the firearms expert had left the set because the dangerous scenes had already been shot. If he'd been there, he might have checked the gun and seen that one bullet from the dummies was left in the barrel. He would have known that the blanks could expel that bullet with lethal force, and that's just what happened. Fired from 15 feet, 4.6 meters, away, the bullet tore into Lee's abdomen and through his vital organs, coming to rest at his spine. Despite hours of surgery and 60 pints, 28 liters, of blood transfusions, Lee died of massive internal bleeding. He was 28 years old. Number 9. Harry O'Connor. Skydiving takes equal parts daring and attention to detail. Harry O'Connor possessed both in abundance and turned his fascination for parachuting from airplanes into a career. His credits as stuntman and aerial coordinator ranged from the 90s films The Perfect Storm to Charlie's Angels and Tomorrow Never Dies. In 2002, his expertise brought him to Prague, Czech Republic, for the Vin Diesel film Triple X. One stunt was particularly exacting. O'Connor would parasail along the Vltava River, pulled by a speedboat toward the Palacky Bridge. He would pass under the bridge with inches to spare, then drop onto a submarine while the parachute, for dramatic effect, crashed against the bridge railing. O'Connor filmed the stunt several times, performing it to a T. Yet, he felt one more attempt could be better. He was wrong. On his last take, O'Connor's judgment was slightly off, and he slammed into one of the bridge's stone pillars. He was 45 years old. Number 10. Sarah Jones. If Brandon Lee died from tragic incompetence, the death of Sarah Jones was a criminal affair. Jones was a 27-year-old camera assistant working on Midnight Rider, a biopic of the musician Gregg Allman. On the morning of February 20, 2014, the crew was setting up a scene on a railroad bridge that spanned a river in rural Georgia. The main prop, a bed frame and mattress, was set on the tracks. The crew had been assured that only 2 trains used that bridge, and both had already passed. When an unexpected third train loomed into view, the crew scrambled for safety. Jones and some others made it to the narrow walkway that bordered the tracks, clinging to the girders that rose up outside it. In their haste to escape, the bed was left behind. The train hit at around 60 miles, 97 kilometers, per hour, sending metal bars flying. By the time the train had passed, 6 crew members were seriously injured. Jones lay dead on the tracks, killed after being struck by either the mangled metal frame or the train itself. Later investigations would suggest that no one had been given permission to use the bridge, that the director was accustomed to flouting laws and common-sense precautions, and the producers had been less than honest about the dangers the crew faced. The case against the producers went to trial 1 year later. In exchange for guilty pleas, most of the defendants received lighter sentences, primarily fines and probation. Director Randall Miller received a 2-year sentence.